So you're going to be creating a brand new document. You're going to save it as push navigation menu. It should go into your lesson 12 folder. And then you're just basically going to have to key it all in. And there's really nothing in here as far as the CSS goes that you haven't seen before. And this should all look familiar. This has got a flex box layout. Okay, display is flex. The divs have a flex value of 1. We have a side navigation bar. And so we have various styling for that. And then we have a main section. This little media section here is for mobile. How can I tell? It's got a max height of 450. And so that would indicate smaller screen for like a phone. And basically it's just decreasing the padding on the top and it's making the font size smaller, which makes sense. Down in our code, we have a div section with links. This is the side navigation bar. So it's got an ID of side nav, my side nav, and a class of side nav. So if you look up here, this all is dealing with the class of side nav. So it's going to apply this formatting to any links that are in there. It applies this formatting. To hover states, it applies this formatting. Okay, and then we have inside, we do have a close button. It's an X basically, and that is the HTML equivalent for that. So there is some styling here for the close button. The position will be absolute, which makes sense because it's the X to close the side menu. Okay, and so it's got some absolute positioning, it's got a font size, and it's got a fairly large margin because we want the close button over on the right side of the navigation menu. So I'm going to actually open this up in a browser so you can see what I'm talking about as I'm talking about it. Okay, so if I click on that, that opens up the menu. This is the X, the close button I was talking about. Okay. So that is the styling for the close button right here. It does have an absolute position, which totally makes sense. The hover and the link states are for the side nav class. So basically, when we open this up, this is the hover state it's talking about. Okay, and the link state is how it looks right now. Okay, so we've got our hover state, the link state, we've got the close button. Okay, and that's what all of this code in here is doing. Okay, and those are our links. We have a main section. And in the main section, this code right here, next to the word open, is where we are getting the 3 lines from. And those lines are pretty universal symbols for a menu. Okay, so those 3 lines are coming from this HTML equivalent. Okay, on click, it's going to call open nav. Open nav is down here. We'll go through that in a minute. Okay, but this is all in the main section. Okay, then we come down here into the script. So they click on the open button. It calls open nav. It changes the width of the side nav to 250. And then it changes the margin for main. The margin, the left margin, to 250. And that is why when we click on this open, that the content gets pushed over. It's because it's changing the margin on this to a left margin of 250. And that is where that push is coming from. And if we go up and we look at my side nav, and we kind of look at the settings, and you can kind of look at what the left margin currently is. You can see that the overflow right now is hidden. And you can also see that we have some transitions occurring. And that's where that sliding is coming from. Okay, and then when we click on the close, what happens is the width of my side nav goes back to 0, and our left margin goes back to 0. So we click open, that navigation opens up to 250. We click close, it goes back to 0. Okay, we click open, the main now has a left margin of 250. We click close, the main has a margin of 0. And this transition on the left margin of 5 seconds, that is that slow animation that is occurring. Okay, so it looks animated. It is that transition that is making the animation occur. Okay, so we have it on main. And we also have it up here on the side navigation itself. Okay, so that's really all that's going on in here. Okay, so this is the first one that you're going to key in. And the second one, instead of having that push effect, what's going to happen is when we open it, it's just going to kind of overlay. It's going to go right over the top. So we're going to basically take this document, and then we are going to save this under a different name. So we're going to call this now. Make sure you've saved any changes first, and then you'll go to File and Save As. And we're going to call it Overlay. And the only difference between these is down here on the open and close. So what we're going to do is we don't want the left margin to change. So we're just going to zap the left margin line in both cases. So then what will happen is our side nav is going to expand, and it'll expand right on top of what's there. So instead of pushing it, it's just going to overlay it. So we'll save our change. And now we are going to open up this overlay one. And I'll pull this over here. And so now you can see how they are different. Which one is better? I think for mobile, this actually may work better. So if you think a lot of your users would be mobile, I would probably do the overlay. Now we're going to change some of this text here too, so it makes sense. So instead of it saying that it's a side nav push, it is now a side nav overlay example. And so click on the element below to open the side navigation menu and overlay the content on the right. Okay, and at this point we can save and close.